Welcome to the Legacy Den. This is our first episode. I'm your host, Rob.
And my name is Mason. And we are your hosts for this brand new inaugural podcast. Rob, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so this is a Magic the Gathering podcast. I've been playing Magic since 4th edition. When I was in elementary school, we got the Magic the Gathering 4th edition Deckmaster box for a Christmas present from one of our neighbors. Learned how to play it. Turns out half the kids in my class, all the boys, knew how to play. So we would just get together and play. There was a local card store near me. I started to play then. I took a bit of a break. Moved to Japan here. I live in the Osaka area, and now I play in tournaments all the time, mostly Legacy Vintage, but I also play Modern and a bit of EDH Pauper. How's your Magic history? Please tell me about yourself.
My Magic background. Well, my name is Mason. I'm from Chicago, but I currently live in Nagahama, Japan. I have been playing since, I want to say 2011, 2012. Maybe 2013. I jumped in at the RDR Innistrad standard, which was really, really tight, and I liked it a whole lot. Played a heck of a lot of standard, but once the rotation hit, I realized that losing all of the value and that I had accrued in trying to build standard decks sucked. So I then moved on to modern decks, and I started building modern decks. And after a while, I realized that with bannings and random things like that, like modern wasn't where it was at. So then I started to build legacy decks. And since then, I've never looked back because Legacy is a sweet format, and my cards don't really ever lose their value or don't ever, they hardly ever get banned. And so,
They often gain value, actually.
Well, generally.
So tell me about what decks did you get started with in both Modern and Legacy? And what do you play now?
The first modern deck I ever really liked was I watched a streamer, Jeff Hoogland, and
he's infamous.
Yeah, he's infamous. Although some people hate him, some people don't like him, some people like him a whole lot. And I have not watched any of his content in quite a while, actually. But he had a blue-red fairy Delver list, and I loved the hell out of it because I loved Spellstutter Sprite, and I thought Delver was a sweet card. And I played that for a long time, and I evolved and tried to play other decks. I liked Grixis Control, I believe, for a little point, and then basically I decided that I had had enough trying to create my own deck and just wanted to play what was good, and I bought into Splinter Twin. And then, like 3 days later, it got banned. And I was just like, screw this crap. I'm not dealing with this anymore. And I immediately started purchasing Volcanic Islands. And
good call.
And I had Blue-Red Delver for the Treasure Cruise meta, and expanded my list to have Blue-White-Red Stoneblade.
This is Legacy now.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is Legacy. This is I had that for the Miracles meta. And because I had the fetches and I had all the lands, I eventually started getting all of the cards for Miracles. And then post top ban, I expanded into, Grixis Delver, Grixis Control, and just kept building more and more decks and keeping all of my legacy cards. And moving cards from Japan to the United States helped with that a great deal.
Yeah. Living in Japan, we definitely have an advantage of being able to order online from sites like Card Kingdom and buy lists to them, as well as having the advantage of getting cards in Japan before they spike. Even if we can't read them. Sometimes the Japanese cards that are EDH powerful are much cheaper than their English counterparts. And that's always been a nice way to pick up some expensive cards for a bit cheaper, I found.
So you mentioned tournaments earlier before. What kind of tournament is coming up on your radar?
Right. So as of this recording, in a few days, Magic Fest, or as they were formerly called, GPs, Kyoto.
There'll always be
Magic.
GPs in my mind.
Yeah,
I'm never going to call them
I'm
Magic
going to
Fest.
call them GPs for the remainder of this podcast, but they're officially called Magic Fests. I understand why they changed the name. They wanted to make it seem more like a convention, which it kind of is. It is kind of more like a convention than just a single tournament, which is actually more appealing to me. But the name GP is much easier to deal with, and that's what we've been dealing with all these years. So GP Kyoto,
I thought it was a big risk, just opening up the door for MFing Kyoto, MFing Syracuse, MFing anything.
So Magic Fest in Kyoto. So I plan on being there at least 2 of the 3 days, if not all 3. The event I'm looking forward to the most is Vintage. So in Vintage, because of the new set, Ravnica Alliance, there was a really, really good card for Vintage printed. Some people might say it's a terrible card for the format. Lavinia, Azorius Renegade. So for those who don't know what she does, I can edit this video later, pop her up on the screen, and she's a 2/2 for 2. If your opponent can't play spells that have a CMC of more than the amount of lands you have, so that kills playing Force of Will, playing any Delve card without actually having that many lands. And her second ability is if an opponent casts a spell without paying mana for it, it gets countered. So, you know what's 0 mana in Vintage? Every single Mox. You know what else is 0 mana? Force of Will, Mental Misstep, Daze,
Black Lotus.
Yeah, Lotus, Mana Crypt. After you discard 3 cards, Hollow One. Cabal Therapy, Flashback from the Graveyard, Dredge Return, Flashback from the Graveyard. A lot of these cards are 0 mana, and Lavinia just shuts them down. If you get her on the play turn 1, which isn't impossible, a Lotus or any Mox plus a regular land will do it because she's 2 mana, and you just protect her, sometimes you can just win a game through that. Like, she's almost better than Stony Silence against Paradox decks because they can't recast the artifacts. They can only use them once. And sometimes if they don't even have 4 lands, they can't even cast Outcome. So she's just been a monster in the format. And just playing a control build where I take it easy, take it slow, keep her on board, just swing for 2, Snapcaster, just keep control of the board. She can really kind of stop other decks from doing stuff without being nearly as openly oppressive as Workshops. So I'm looking forward to taking a Jeskai list, main deck Pyroblast because it's Vintage, and just, the power, a few of the Moxes. Just go for just getting her out, getting a small threat out, or getting a mentor out and just protecting it. So I'm looking forward to that.
Let me ask you a little bit about the Vintage meta though, because I play with you occasionally, but I certainly don't show up to tournaments or anything like that. Is anybody playing any creature removal in that format? Is there
Yeah, actually, there is a Braid has been getting run because it can stop both artifacts and creatures. Swords to Plowshares, Abrupt Decays, Lightning Bolts, they all show up in the meta. However, creature removal is not nearly as important in Vintage as it is in other formats. A lot of creature removal is sideboard because sometimes the match is over before a creature needs to be removed. Sometimes, the game can be over turn 1 with a Lotus Time Vault Voltaic Key.
Yeah.
Sometimes, Dredge, a single creature removal doesn't really matter against Dredge. So a lot of decks don't run a ton of creature removal. But recently, because of Lavinia, because of the Hollow One Vengevine deck, there has been creature removal in the format. Deathrite Shaman, because it's not playable in Legacy, is a huge threat, and people know they have to get rid of it as soon as they can.
So wait, people are playing Deathrite Shaman in Vintage.
Yes, it is the best creature ever printed. You can quote me on that. Best creature
Wow.
ever printed, and it's played in just about any deck that runs black and is not a combo deck, just any mid-range. It's played in the Elves deck. That's the kind of like anti-power Nullrod Elves deck. It's played in the Bizarre Survival deck, Bizarre Baghdad Survival, which is a new kind of deck. Jund control, 4-color control, anything like that will play Deathrite Shaman. It's just way too good.
Is it like a 4 of in those decks, or?
Usually, yeah.
Oh wow. Okay, I had no idea.
So
Well, go ahead.
So my sideboard, there's a couple spicy cards I'm running. You know, just Containment Priest because of all of the Oath decks and Dredge, and the Survival deck stops Vengevine from coming back. But a couple cards that I'm running that are kind of spicy. The first one I'm running is Subterranean Tremors. As you can see, it's the one with the lizard. So it's X and a red. I'll try to edit it here. It deals X damage to each creature without flying. If X is 4 or more, destroy all artifacts. If X is 8 or more, put a 8 red lizard token on the babattlefield. So this can be creature removal.
Please tell me you have that token. Show me that token.
I don't have the token. I will never cast it for that much. But I can remove a board if they're playing a young pyro deck or something. If they're playing a bunch of zombies and they're going wide. If they're playing the survival deck, or if they're on workshops, I can remove half their board. And if I can play it for 5 mana, I can kill just about any creature, and I can kill all the artifacts, which is very, very good against workshops. You can turn the game around instantly.
It deals X damage to
each creature without flying. Yeah.
Okay. So the X is the damage. Okay.
Yep. And then if it's 4 or more, just destroy all artifacts, just anyways.
Yep.
So the other spicy card I'm running in my sideboard is Aven Mind Sensor. So the reason I'm running it is because 3 mana isn't as hard to get to in Vintage as it is in the other formats. And there's been a lot of decks, especially the Survival Bazaar deck, where you're constantly just searching with the fetch, and then you're using Survival. So you're getting rid of a Basking Root Wallet to search for another Basking Root Wallet, to search for Vengevine, to discard to search for Vengevine, discard, search for Vengevine. They all come into play, and you cast some hollow ones. It's pretty ridiculous. And Aven Mind Sensor being able to kind of shut down what they can pick, and sometimes just kill their hand, make them not able to get anything, is extremely appealing, especially with the flash on it. And a 2/1 flyer in this kind of deck, if I can just protect it, which my deck is very good at doing. My deck's good at protecting what I have on board. And yeah, my other threats are Dak Fadens, Jace, Snapcasters, the usual. So those are my 2 spicy cards. Everything else is pretty standard. Tormod's Crypts, Containment Priest, Pithing Needles, Wear Tear.
Okay. Well, talk a little bit about your main deck for a second. You said it was going to be Jeskai Control?
Yeah, Lavinia Control. So it's 3 copies of Lavinia, a few Snapcasters, and just about any blue card that gives advantage or searches. Like I have 4 Preordains. I have the Recall, Brainstorm Ponder. I run 4 Mental Missteps because that stops Source of Plowshares, stops their Ancestral Recalls, stops Pyroblasts. It stops Lightning Bolts. You know, there's so many things that it stops. You know, I run Disenchants because why not?
Okay. So it's not like a paradoxical outcome deck.
Not outcome,
it's just
no.
more
it's
of
just,
a like control the board and counter anything that matters while you beat with 2/2 bears or get a mentor on board.
Yeah, exactly. Or just sometimes beat them with just have Lavinia sitting there and just Jace them to death.
Okay. Yeah. Jace is also a good card.
Yep. And then
Jace is a thing.
Dak Faden versus Artifact decks is really good. So it's pretty solid. There are times when I just can't do anything. Sometimes there's times when my opponent plays really fast. They have like Mox, this is this. And sometimes I'm just like 1 land, pass, because that's just how the deck plays. But it's very consistent. It doesn't mulligan too much. And I think it's only 3 rounds for these side events. So I'm looking for consistency.
There
So
you go.
that's what I'm looking forward to with Vintage. What are you looking forward to playing at the GP?
So I'm going to what is the what is the tournament called? Like the challenge or something like that?
Just Legacy Challenge 1. They're just side events.
Yeah, the big side event that's going to be like, what is it, like a $30 entry fee and whatnot,
Yeah,
and
like
you get
just
a
I think it's just called like Saturday Legacy 1 or something.
word. Yeah, I'm planning on playing Legacy on Saturday. I've got my deck all picked out. I've decided to. I'm for sure going for the Rich Cali Is It Delver deck that he took first place with SCG Syracuse.
Is it
Um,
Delver?
it
Or
is.
is it not Delver?
No, it is.
That's
It is Delver. It is a pretty standard looking Is It Delver. To me, like, I haven't played Blue Red Delver since the Treasure Cruise meta, and to me it always seemed like kind of a tier 2, tier 3 deck, just by virtue of the fact that it was just very, very simple. Now that the meta has shifted, where two color decks in legacy meta, because we're talking about legacy now, where the legacy meta has shifted, that two colors is now very much the norm. Like, running three colors is really dangerous, just because you can just get taken out by Wasteland. Everybody's running a lot of basics, and it's kind of,
the way to go.
it's sort of like slowed down, I guess. Like, a Wasteland can be very, very punishing at this point. So I've been watching a lot of online content, and I've been seeing that Delver is just an extremely strong threat. Delver decks seem to be putting combo decks and even control decks, down just by attacking and just coming at them, relentlessly. And their game plan hasn't really changed. So if you can manage to win the coin flip, you can pretty much put your opponent on the back foot from, the beginning of the game. So the deck that I've taken and I'm planning on using is 4 Young Pyromancer, 2 True Name, 4 Terramander. God, I keep pronouncing the P.
The Terramander. All right.
Terramander. Fucking that stupid card. Terramander. 4 Delver. 1 Vapor Snag, 1 Preordain, 4 Ponder, 4 Bolt, 3 Light Up the Stage, which I'm really looking forward to trying out. And then the 4 Stays, and the lands.
All right. I'm going to interrupt you here. How do you feel about Pateramander as a card?
How do I feel about him? I like him as a later threat rather than an early threat. So, like, with the Delver deck, you always want to open up at least 1 to 2 creatures in your opening. And what he's going to do is that little flying lizard's going to be there in your opening hand, and you're going to look at him and you're going to go, dang it, I really wish you were a Delver. Why are you not a Delver? But on the other hand, in the late game, when you're just trying to push through the last few points of damage and you really need to top deck a creature and just throw it out there, he actually is a really, really sweet threat, just because, you drop him, and then for 1 extra mana, he's suddenly a flying 5/5, and your opponent now has to answer him.
Yeah,
so,
one of the things that I've liked about that card is that even if it's on the board on turn 2 or 3, what I like about it is that your opponent looks at it and goes, oh, that's a 1/1. I don't have to worry about that. And then all of the sudden, there's going to be one turn when your opponent's going to go, wait. They look at your lands, they look at how many instants are in your graveyard, and then go, uh-oh, I might be in trouble now. I didn't have to worry. Now I have to worry.
I honestly don't buy that my opponent's going to do that. I always assume that my opponent's going to do the smart thing. And the moment I play him, my opponent's going to immediately go, "Can I look at your yard?" And then you just hand over your
Well, yeah.
yard begrudgingly and just have them like sort through everything. And they're just like, okay, okay. So he's 2 spells away from making it 1 mana.
Yeah.
And now I got to like, either bolt it this turn or next
Well, yeah.
turn. Otherwise it's going to be
Late
big.
game, it's also really difficult to play around that. But early game, sometimes you're like, well, I have one removal spell. If I get rid of this and then they drop a Delver or a Young Pyro, I lose the game. So I think I leave it for a bit. And then you're going to get to a point when you can transform it. And I go, oh, what do I do? And again, one cool part about it late game is you play it. If you have a few mana open, and I'm like, and to turn bolt it, you're like, adapt. I'm like, okay, then I'll wait. You're like, I'm going to adapt. Bolt in response, like adapt on the stack of the bolt. You can do it as many times as you want.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it definitely creates a bit of a sub game with reactions and re-reactions and whatnot. The one card that's really making me excited for the deck is Light Up the Stage, because I really want to see how that card will play out as far as card advantage for this deck, because having a 1 mana draw 2 is something that this deck really never had before.
in
I remember
standard right now, it is pretty much one mana
in
draw
the
two.
Treasure Cruise meta, the entire game revolved around dropping Treasure Cruise as fast as possible, and you would just throw things out of your hand as fast as possible. You would just burn through all of your cantrips just to try and hit that Treasure Cruise, just to try and get that 3-card draw. And you knew that if you were the first one to get that 3-card draw, that you were way, way, way ahead of your opponent. Now, of course, Light Up the Stage is a bit more fair simply by virtue of the fact that it's a 3-mana spell that sometimes can be cast for 1 mana, but dealing damage to your opponent is pretty much the main stated goal of this deck anyway. So you're pretty much, I would say, 70% going to get, there with the damage. Meanwhile, like just the threat package, the whole deck just interests me. It looks solid, and I think it's going to be fairly easy for me to play. I bought the last cards that I needed for this deck in order today during lunch.
So your first experience playing the deck is going to be in the tournament.
Well, yeah, kind of. Unless, of course, I can get somebody to play with me, like, before the tournament, just to test it out.
I've done that too. I literally, my first big tournament was a Big Magic Open in Yokohama. I went there with Miracles, and I went there with Painter actually. And then that morning,
and you audibled, you changed decks. I remember hearing that one.
I'm not feeling Painter today. I'm missing like a Caracas and maybe a few other cards. I'm like, I'm just gonna go to the vendors, buy them in the morning. If I get them, then I'm playing Miracles. And I played Miracles for the first time that tourney, and I did well enough to get money. So
yeah, you cashed that. How much did you get off that?
I think I got $50.
That's not bad.
I think I went like 6-2 or something, 6-3, but I got $50, and it was a $30 entry. So it's sometimes you just have good days. Like there are times like Storm. I expect to go to a tournament playing Storm and do miserably because I'm just not used to that kind of deck. But you're used to playing the Delver.
Pyro deck, I played Grixis Delver for a while with the old Honda Civic when it was the thing to play. I played Blue Red Delver, of course, back on the Treasure Cruise meta. So and even before the Treasure Cruise meta, because I had that deck built back before that card was printed, and it was simply just a strategy of
beat as fast as can.
Well, like, because it had the whole Goblin Guide plus
Price of
Progress, yeah,
yep.
and just pop for the win, and that was a solid strategy. Like it worked until Miracles eventually took over and sort of said, no, we're not doing that anymore. But yeah. Anyway, so I feel pretty strong with this deck. And I ordered the last parts of it today during my lunch break from Hariruya. And Hariruya, if you would like to sponsor this podcast, this very, very fine podcast, please let us know. I was very satisfied actually because
I would wear a Haruruya hoodie.
I would totally wear a Haruruya hoodie. I went on. I was looking at different websites over my lunch break, and I was just like, "Do I want to buy these cards? Because if I'm going to buy these cards online, I was chancing the vendors on the day, or buying them online like today, because today would have been the perfect time to get them before I left at 7 in the morning on Saturday morning." And Haruya had just marked down their prices. They just put some things on sale, and I was just like, "All right, we're doing this." So I slammed my credit card, and we're good to go. And they sent me a shipping email at like 5 o'clock, 5:30. So like it's already in
Japan
the
ships
mail.
fast, so you'll be fine. You'll get it in a day or two.
Yeah. So anyway, the next thing to talk about, I guess, with the deck is the sideboard that I've got.
Yeah. So generic sideboard stuff. Don't worry about anything spicy.
Well, so the list from Syracuse, ugh, my pronunciation sucks, has a sulfuric vortex, a null rod, and a Grafdigger's Cage. And the guy who made the deck was actually thinking about cutting those cards for a couple of other different things. I kind of like the null rod myself. I for some reason I kind of dig the fact that you can just drop it and screw over Stoneblade, or mess up Storm, because like
It
that
hurts
really
death
wrecks
and
up
taxes a lot. Also, it stops a
Death and
vial and
Texas
it
as
stops
well.
their equipment.
Yeah. I also think that the Graph Digger's Cage would be relevant because of Phoenix decks. I think that Phoenix decks might show up on Saturday. The Sulfuric Vortex, I know, is there for Miracles. I don't know if I really need it, though. But I also
It's the
I
thing
can't
about
think of anything that I
miracles.
might change him out for. What
The thing
what do
about
you think?
miracles is, in order to beat that deck, you have to just have a threat that they can't answer, and enchantments are much harder to answer for that deck than creatures. So if you can set it out, then you're putting them on the clock, and then they go, okay, now I have to find my Council's Judgment, because they're not bringing in disenchants. Even if I know you're bringing in Sulfuric Vortex, I'm not bringing in disenchants. I'll bring in extra councils. I might bring in engineered explosives, but I will not bring in a disenchant for Vortex. Just because then you're sitting there with Young Pyro playing a bunch of tokens, and I'm sitting there with a disenchant looking like an idiot, right? Like, you don't want to overboard. And that's the kind of card that's gonna get them. Almost anytime I'm playing a blue control deck and my opponent slams Sulfuric Vortex, I do the math and I'm like, there's no way out of this. So
Hmm.
I think it's really, really good against blue control decks, not just Miracles, against Stoneblade, against Grixis Control, any of those decks. It's really good against. Um, Even Death and Taxes, they can start gaining life. Like they have Batter Skulls, they have Cheetahs. You don't want them gaining life.
The one thing the deck creator was talking about was putting in Winter Orb to be anti-miracles tech, which seems interesting, but it isn't really a win con, to me.
It's a slow them down to the point where they can't really play comfortably con. But I don't personally like it.
Mm,
But I can understand why some people would put that in their deck.
yeah. Well, I'm probably just going to run this sideboard that it's got here. I may tweak like a thing or two. I really think that Grafdigger's Cage is necessary just for Phoenix decks. Trying to think. I might want to grab another Vapor Snag, though, just because of Gurmag Angler and 2020
Merit
Merit Lodge
Lodge.
tokens.
That one
So,
damage and just the 1 or 2 turns of just having a chance to hit your opponent,
hmm,
especially with a TNN, because you've got them on the clock. All you need to do is just stay alive. And if you can Vapor Snag a Merit Lodge, keep them off of Merit Lodge for another 2 turns, that might just be enough to get through. So I do
yeah.
like Vapor Snag in that sense, but
Um,
aside from the 2020,
hmm. Well, we'll see what we can do. There's one Vapor Snag in the main. I have thought about going down to 2 light up the stage, or it also runs 3 main Chain Lightning, which I may cut one of those.
Either way, like, and those are the kind of cards that you can cut post sideboard. Like, it's kind of nicer to have those kind of cards that are kind of generic, works anytime, but easy to take out, and you don't super miss them. And that's also kind of that's one of the problems with Vintage, is that because there's so many one-ofs, there's so many cards that I always think I need this for this matchup, or this card is useful for this matchup. Like, do I really want to take out Gush to board in or Pyroblast? Like, which is more important, right? And that's kind of the problem I have with sideboarding in Vintage. Legacy, it's a little easier because you run a lot of 3s and 4s. You can always take one copy out of something. You know, that's kind of one advantage of cards of things like 3 light up the stage and 3 chain lightnings.
Yeah, well, I guess light up the stage is basically kind of like a Gush.
It's 1 mana either way. Your next couple draws are smoothing it out.
Yeah. Well, I will play around with the list. Hopefully, the cards I ordered will come tomorrow or on Thursday. And if they do arrive, then I'll be able to sleeve them up and kind of play around with the deck a little bit and test it out.
All right. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck to you too. You'll have to tell me how things go on Friday, because you're playing Vintage on Friday?
I'm playing Vintage Saturday, the same day you're there. I'm playing Legacy Friday. And
okay,
I'm bringing,
yeah. I definitely want to hear how things go on Friday.
Stoneblade is what I'm bringing.
Blue-white Stoneblade.
Blue-white Stoneblade, back to basics, whatever. Nothing exciting. Nothing spicy, just counters, Stoneforges, TNNs.
Seems good.
Stay alive. I do want to fit a Lavinia, actually, in the sideboard.
Maybe you just want to put her in every deck, don't you?
I kind of just want to put her in every deck I play. Now that I think about it, now that you're saying this, yes, I want to put that card in every deck I play. Yes.
Every deck. You should run her in EDH.
That would be mean. That would be so mean.
Well, duh. But that's the whole point. EDH is about, taking a whole bunch of people together who want to, have a nice fun game and just saying, no, I'm the fun police.
Who needs friends? Who needs friends?
You can just...
I have the win. I don't need friends. Yeah. So I am thinking about putting a copy of Lavinia or 2 in the board, but it'll help with Storm matchups. It'll help with stuff like Sneak and Show. It'll help with things like even Reanimator. It stops Unmask. Anything, if they have to get there with a Lotus Petal, it stops all of that.
Yeah, it does. It does stop a whole huge cross section of different things.
One-sided. She's a one-sided hate.
Yeah.
If it hurt both of us, that'd be one thing. But the fact that she says only you get screwed over by me, I kind of like it. And I run Karakas in my deck anyways. I run Cavern of Souls, and usually naming human. So
seems right.
Human or Merfolk, actually, because sometimes you got to get a nemesis out. Human for Snapcaster, Merfolk for TNN.
What am I doing on Friday? Friday I have my end of year ceremony. So morning I have stuff to do, but in the afternoon I'm not going to have anything to do at work. So you give me a field report. Let me know how things go on Friday.
I will post up for sure. Sweet. So also Friday I'm going to have a bit of time to go around the dealer booths. So I found out some interesting information. In the previous years, you couldn't sell cards to the dealers. You couldn't buy list. Yeah. I don't know why. It had to do something with if you're taking cards and you're selling them to the dealers, there's a chance that they're stolen, and it actually increases the amount of people who might take something and sell it to dealers to get quick money. And that's what their mindset was. But that kind of ruins the point of having a booth, right? If you can't buy cards or you can't even trade cards, I can't even go to the dealer and say, I have these 2 cards. I want that card. And they can't do anything. But if you walk 10 feet over to the free area tables, you can trade with other people. So I don't really get why they couldn't do that, but now it's all right. This year, starting from this GP, you can buy list to the dealers, and a lot of them say, if you sell it to us and you're just getting cards back, we can kind of give you a bonus. So, and normally Japanese buy list prices are pretty high anyways, because it's all in cash. They never do trade. It's just cash. So giving an extra bonus is actually a pretty big deal. So is there anything you're looking to get this GP? Is there anything you're looking to pick up?
Not specifically. The most recent deck I was thinking about making was depths, and so I was looking at Mox Diamonds, but I don't have the cash or anything to pony up to get them yet, and I'm not really in any hurry, really, because they're not that big of a thing. Right now, I'm saving up because I have that trip to Denver coming up. I'm going back to the United States and stopping through Denver for Tin Finvitational, which is basically a whole bunch of people in the Tin Fin Discord setting up their own private tournament on the weekend of GP Denver. And so I'm planning on going to that and trading with them and seeing them. And after that, I'm going to head to Chicago and then, visit my family and whatnot. And this is going to be my first vacation without having to take the kids in a long while. So most of my money is kind of set aside for that at the moment. There are some things that I would like to get priced, though. I've been sitting on all of those beta cards that I purchased right before that huge initial spike. I picked up 5 copies of Veteran Bodyguard beta.
You 5 beta Veteran Bodyguards.
I have 5 of them, yeah. I kept seeing the price of them and just going, why is this card so cheap? And so I just bought them.
What'd you pick them up for?
I got them for like 6,000 yen a piece, I believe.
It's good price.
So, yeah, well, so I bought 4, and then I noticed that they restocked and did not up the price, so I bought more.
That last one.
But yeah, currently Channel Fireball I think is offering, I want to say like $170 cash or 200 something credit.
That's a lot. I mean, that's you've more than doubled your money. You're close to tripling your money there. So yeah, $300 investment, getting what, close to 1,000 cash, 900 cash.
Yeah, and there's other beta cards that I picked up as well. Like at the time, I was kind of flush because I hadn't done anything in a while and just kind of sat on my money. And I just blew a lot of it on buying beta cards that were just available. So I'm planning on bringing them with me and just having some people tell me how much they would be willing to pay for it, just to get an idea of the price. I also kind of wanted you to check out the Veteran Bodyguards and tell me whether or not you think I should send it in to get, what do you call it? What is the ratings?
Yeah. Get it slabbed.
Yeah, getting it stuck in a piece of plastic. Because
getting it graded.
Graded. Yeah, that's it. That's the word I'm looking for. Yeah, because I've looked at a couple of them and they were like listed as SP, but you know how Japan is with like, things that are SP are like.
Bring them. I'll check them out. I'll let you know if I think they're worth getting graded. Because keep in mind, it's $25 to get it graded. So.
I understand that, but like I've like looked at, I think on TCG Player there's a Veteran Bodyguard. I think that's like an 8.5 or something. I'm not sure, but like I've looked at it and the whitening on the edges and stuff like that makes it look just god awful compared to like I don't know, 3 of the ones that I have.
Yeah, centering and stuff is also important too, and like the edges and the stuff that you can't always see. So I'll check it out. We'll look at it total. But if I think it can get a 9, I'll let you know.
Yeah, I would assume that like I think most of them would probably get 8s at minimum. But
yep. So I'm looking to pick up. I'm trying to finish off my old school deck. I'm building old school stasis. So I'm trying to pick up some of the pieces that are kind of neat. Hardaduya had in their box, their discount box, they had foreign black border howling mines for 250 yen each. So
That's pretty good.
That's really good. So I'm playing stasis, so this is exactly what I need. Because got to play blue white. So
you know, I love myself some foreign black border cards.
Yeah.
All of my counter
not
spells.
As good as this. $3 for this one.
You found a $3 black border.
I found a $3 foreign black border counter spell. So
That's
I'm looking to pick up more copies to finish out what I need for the deck. I actually have all the expensive stuff already in my vintage deck. I have the Time Vaults, I have the Lotuses, the Mox, the Power. It's just the stuff like this for old school that's actually old school that I'm looking to pick up. And I already got my revised islands and stuff. I did have an Antiquities Strip Night that I picked up for about $12 back in the day.
Nice.
So I'm also looking to finish off a middle school deck. Middle school is the format after old school, where you can use things kind of from, I think it's like Ice Age up to Modern, Ice Age up to Scourge, or whatever's after, Legions, one of the two. Ice Age through Onslaught.
Yeah. I remember hearing about some people talk about that.
Yeah, and so you can play land still in that format. I'm interested in building the Donate Illusions of Grandeur deck, which is called Tricks.
Yeah.
So
Tricks is a sweet deck.
Yeah. So that means I'll need things like Necropotence, which are cheaper in Japan because Japan's not big on EDH, and also I can pick up like Sapphire Medallions.
Those are good cards to have.
Yep. So stuff like that will be fun for that deck. Looking forward to it. But aside from that, mana drain has been spiking recently. I saw it at stores the other day for close to $40 or $50. It's up to $80, $90 now. So I'm looking to get some of those. But aside from that,
why is it spiking? Because I had thought that mana drain hasn't been played in vintage ever since.
It's an EDH card.
Okay. People are playing an EDH now. That seems odd.
It's very, very good because you counter a big spell. You're like, oh, it's a 6 mana spell. My turn. I now have whatever I had plus 6 mana. Do a bunch of shit.
Just drop an Ugin or some stupid crap.
Yeah, Insurrection, whatever wins the game, right? And so,
Insurrection always wins the game.
It always does. Never loses.
Let's be honest.
So now that dealers at the GP can buy list things, that's actually one more rule that's different from a couple years ago. The biggest change that they've had from this GP and the last one were traveling dealers. Do you know what I'm talking about with traveling dealers?
Foreigners coming in, setting up on a table with multiple binders and having people kind of, look through their wares, despite the fact that they're not, paying for a table or anything like that.
They're pretty much doing what you should be doing at a table, but without paying for a table, like sitting there at the laptop with a lot of binders. Kind of someone's going like, I want this card. And they're like, okay, show me your binder. I'll give you this much for this much for this. Kind of giving them buy list prices for their cards. They're like, yes, they have a lot of old cards. Yes, they have a bigger selection. So some people say, if I have more cards and a bigger selection, I shouldn't always expect my stuff to be valued the same as someone who only has a little bit of stuff. But I'm kind of the fact that a card is worth this and this card is worth this. If you're trading them, they should be worth equal. And I can understand, like, for a friend, you hook them up, or you're just like, well, I don't really care about this card. I got it cheap. So if you want a $50 card for $40 and you're going to give me a $40 card I really want, fine. I can see that. But when it's like, oh, these are $20 fetch lands, I'll give you 12 each in trade towards this Liliana I have. It's like, no. So do you know how they got around those guys?
Well, I mean, one of the things that I want to point out is dealing with those guys is one of the telltale signs that you're dealing with one of those kinds of guys is the ones that they'll actually ask you, how much do you value this for? What do you value this for? Rather than just saying, this is what the TCG player mid price is, or what price do you want to go off of? Okay, this card is worth X price or whatnot. 9 times out of 10, they'll ask you what a price of a card is while they're flipping through your binder. Oh, hey, this card, how much is this? And what they're literally looking for you to do is they're looking for you to spit out a price that's way under what it is, and then jump on that price.
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
that's one of those things that you always need to watch out when you're dealing with trading people. It's just
Yeah,
like, oh,
like
hey, you've got a nice foil here. What price is that at?
I might have $10 cards. I'm like, how much is that? And I'm like, $10. I'm like, oh, it's too much. Ugh. And I'm like, what do you want me to do?
what did,
And
what
then
did
I'm
you
like,
expect?
I would go 9 if you're really like, if you have something I really want. I'd be like, oh, well, 9 is fine because I really want that. And they're like, no, 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 no. Like,
Yeah.
I try not to deal with those people. Another thing, so the way that they got rid of the traveling dealers, actually, they started kicking them out of the venue and telling them they cannot come back. The
Mm.
way that they're doing it is because there's a rule now under trading. It says people, you can trade, but here's what you can't do in trading. You can't trade money for cash, things like that. You can't trade art for cash, whatever. And they said people who have too much stock can't do trading. So how much is too much? That's the thing. That's how they can kick you out. They say you have way too much stuff. You got to go. Because then they were like, if you have this much stuff and you wanted to do this, you should have bought a booth. Those stores are paying money to do what you're doing. Get out of our convention. So that is actually one of the best things that's happened because those guys just try to take advantage. Like one guy tried to get a bunch of stuff from you and he overpriced his like volcanic island by a lot, right? Do you have a story about that?
Well, yeah, that was the first duel that I was trying to get. That was at the modern GP that we were at. Do you remember where that was? Was that Kobe?
I believe yes.
I think it was GP Kobe. Must have been like 20. Yeah, I forget the year.
Pretty
Anyway,
sure.
I was
Yeah.
I was basically shopping around trying to find Volk because I wanted to get Blue Red Delver for my first Legacy deck. I was looking for my first duel, my first down for the thing, and basically I went from trader to trader asking, hey, does anybody have what was it revised? Does anybody have revised Volks? And the only guy that had revised Volks at all was this one dude who's had to have been, I don't know, Eastern European
Like
or maybe
very
Russian or
Eastern
something.
European. Yeah.
And basically, I came up to him and I was just like, "Hey, you got revised Volks?" And he said yes. And I said I would like to trade for it. And he flips through my binder and he kind of goes, "No, I don't think so." And I said, "Well, all right. First of all, I've got cash. Like I can make up for any value that just is not going to meet your expectations." And so he then says, "Oh, okay, well, then I guess we can make a deal." And he started pulling out pretty much any Japanese shocks he could find. Now, at the
Anything
time,
worth money at the time, right?
well, he was specifically looking for the Japanese shocks because he wanted, I think, to bring him back to wherever his home country was, and Japanese shocks were going to go for a premium wherever he was going to take them. And Shocks had just been reprinted because it was just
Return
after
to
the
Ravnica.
return to Ravnica standard, and so people were expecting them to go up, and so everybody was just like, buy your Shocks now, buy your Shocks now, buy your Shocks now, and so basically he pulled out like almost all of the Shocks that I had out of my binder, and then was basically like then offering, telling me a cash price that he wanted as well. And the value of the cards and the value of the cash was like well over, I don't know, like almost like twice the cash value of what the revised Volk was.
And
And
it was a foreign white border Volk. It wasn't even revised. He's like, oh, the revised one is like $50 more. It's like,
was it a foreign white border one? I forget exactly.
I remember, because that's why you weren't super hype on the deal, because you're like, I want an English revised. I don't really want foreign white border. But it was the only one that like
that had revised
was
Volks,
reasonable. But even so, it wasn't reasonable. It's like when I was going on high-end Facebook and buying volcanics for like $260 at the time, $250, and this dude is like $370 for the foreign white border, $420 for the English. And it's like, and they weren't in pristine condition either, just
they weren't in great condition. And so basically past a certain point, I just realized that I was just getting scammed. And so I finally was just like, you know what? I'm not interested anymore. And I picked up everything and I threw my cards back in my binder and I put everything away. And as I was putting everything away, he's just like, all right, I'll lower the cash price. And I'm just like, no, I'm good. And I was walking away, and then he basically did his last ditch effort to try and get me to sit back down. He's just like, I guess Legacy just isn't for you. And I was just, and I didn't understand him because of his accent. And I was just like, wait, what? And he goes, I guess Legacy isn't for you. And he spoke.
Yeah, people like you should be playing Legacy then.
Or something like that. And I laughed hysterically. I was just like, yeah, probably. And I just walked away from him.
Yeah. Not buying my overpriced duels means you shouldn't play Legacy, right? Good job, guy. I like that reasoning.
So yeah. that was my first foray into trying to get a hold of duels. And
I remember that guy
later on, of course.
Later on, sorry.
Yeah, we did bump into him again at a different shop. Did you bump into him a third time or something?
I bumped into him. I didn't run into him, but I see him because he's very easy to notice around Osaka during GP times. And I would see him literally every single GP I've been to in Japan. And the one that I went to last time in Kyoto, I saw him there. And that was the one where the Channel Fireball guys literally took him and they said, you got to get out of here. You can't be here. And that was just the biggest justice boner. I was just like, this guy is a scumbag. He's scamming people. He's doing dealer stuff without having a table. He's sitting there with his laptop and a calculator, and he's got all his like binders of cards and and he's like pointing at the other dude's stuff, like showing a price. And they just broke up the trade. Like Channel Fireball guys came and they're just like, nah, they broke up the trade and they sent him on his way. So like it's usually the foreigners with like suitcases of stuff that they're like, you can't be here. But if you're just bringing like a binder or two and you're just like, hey, I just want to trade. I have stuff for trade. Let's trade. They will not stop you. But they do watch. So if you're like, and you can't really say numbers and you can't really go like, this is $10, that's $20, because then you're putting cash value on things, which makes it like difficult for them to be like, yeah, okay, that's fine if you're trading. They want you to trade card for card, and because cards aren't worth cash. These don't have a cash value. You're just trading cards that you want to give them, or that they want for cards that you want, quote unquote.
Well, I had thought, and this is something that we kind of need to explain to any listeners who are or viewers, I guess, I don't know, who are not used to Japan, because especially with Kyoto and the Kanto area, gambling is considered illegal in Japan. And if you are creating a game, if you are creating Magic or some other card game where you're putting random cards into packs and they have a monetary secondary value, then you are basically gambling. So in order to skirt that issue, they have to emphatically deny that there is a secondary market.
Yeah, now, Wizards has never, ever acknowledged as a secondary market. And honestly, they cannot, because if they do, a million gambling laws are going to hit them. Yep. Because then they go, wait, so you're saying this card is worth more than this card, even though they're both just cardboard? Okay, now it's gambling. Now, if you can get a card that's worth more, so you can't really say like, oh, this is $50, that's $50, let's trade. You can, but if the guys walking around kind of hear you using like dollar values for everything, they kind of have to go like, you can't say that, or be more discreet about it, kind of. So it's one thing to be careful about, but I mean,
Well, I
everyone's
mean,
going to do it.
one of the better things to use is to use one of those trading apps. Like
That's the best
if
thing
you're
to use.
literally just like punching in card names into an app, and the app is keeping the monetary value of each card,
Yeah. If the other side is
inside
all
there.
right with that, then like definitely just trading app. Just be like, listen, I'm not playing games. We're going to go by this trading app.
Yeah.
Let's put everything that you want in the trading app, and then we'll see what happens from there.
Yep.
Because then you don't have to do the whole like how much is this, you know.
And so you're planning on working some deals at GP Kyoto coming up, huh?
We'll see. I mean, I have a small binder of some stuff. Like it didn't have a ton of good stuff in it, but then I said, I have to put good stuff in here if I'm going to get anything good. The way I found to get good stuff is to have a few cards that are really good that you kind of want to trade off. And then people who have good cards that you're looking for, they're just like, oh yeah, that's a good card. I'll take that one. Sure. And then you just did a trade.
Yep.
So
I've got a couple of cards. I've got an exploration. I've got a vampiric tutor. Just random stuff that
I got a couple Japanese vampiric tutors.
Oh, nice.
Demonic tutor German, the only one with the flavor text. Got
Oh,
Falling
snap.
Star.
Oh man, I want that. I want the German demonic tutor.
I got a few things, so I figure that can help me get what I'm looking for. Maybe.
Yep. Well, good luck, and let me know how things go on Friday, because I definitely want to hear about the tournament. I want to hear about the trades. I want to know everything that's going on the floor before I show up on Saturday, because I'm going to be showing up first thing in the morning, and I'm just going to go right into the Legacy tournament, and then once that's done, once I lose horribly, then I'll start making rounds and start looking for trades or buy-in or whatnot.
Win or lose, it's 3 rounds. Okay, I think we're gonna cut it here.
My sign-out phrase is going to be: don't ever hit the xylophone twice. Just think about it. Don't ever hit the xylophone twice. All right. Sayonara, Rob.
All right. Sayonara, Mason. Peace.